Aman. We are basically doing a discussion on what it means to be an 18-year-old today in India. I wouldn't know because I am not going to reveal my age. Aman may or may not reveal his age, but the bottom line is that a lot of things are happening right now. And that is why Aman and I were brainstorming and we basically came upon this topic. The main reason we are talking about this topic is because of something which happened around 3 days back. I believe we are talking about Bulli Bai, right, Aman?
Yeah, and formerly known as the Sully deals. So you could know them either as this, or you could either know them as the Bulli Bai deal.
Right. So now, for the ones who are not informed about this, what this basically is that around 3 days back, as far as from whatever I have read and from whatever I have been informed about, there was a sort of a mock app which was formed where photographs and information of various Muslim women were uploaded, and it was sort of like they were being auctioned on that app. And after investigation and a lot of social media uproar, because nowadays what happens is without social media uproar, I think a lot of action in certain cases is not taken. What happened was that two
What
culprits.
is what is sort of thing to note here for a second before you go on to that is that
Yeah.
it took a wire journalist with a lot of followers on Twitter. It took her to actually tweet, and it took her to actually file an FIR and to put it on Twitter for people to start taking it seriously.
Right, right.
I just
What
thought you know
was
that.
the name again?
I'm sorry, I can't remember
But journalist
offhand
on the
right
one,
now.
basically, right?
Basically, she worked for the Wire, and I think she was one of the people whose pictures and names showed up on the app. So she filed an FIR and
Right.
she put it out on social media to her X thousand number of followers, which is how this entire thing basically came to light. You know, people started taking it seriously, is what I'm saying. And to add to the point that you were making before I interrupted you, you had two people, and now you have a third person. Just
Okay.
recently, there was a third person who's also just been picked up right now. So you have an 18-year-old, and you have, I think, a 21-year-old, and again another 21-year-old. Three people who've just been picked up. One girl and two boys.
Right. Now, apparently, the 18-year-old is someone who's just she's finished her class 12, and the 21-year-old, one of them is an engineering student, and then there's a third one, of course. As the hours and the days go, not even days, as the hours go by, basically, we're going to keep coming to know more about this case. But
Yeah.
coming back to the point of our discussion, what it means to be an 18-year-old today, what exactly do you feel is going on? Is this something which was always there within us amongst the youth? Is it something new which is happening right now? First, you give your point of what your point of view is, and then I'll go for it.
Okay. So I think it would probably be appropriate to look back at history in that sense, you know. When I grew up in the late 90s and the early 2000s, at least in the environment that I grew up with, we sort of didn't have these little fictions that, you know, so-called fictions that you would have. You might name call somebody in school, but I guess that was where it ended, where it was more of like a joke thing where people in class would start saying, oh, you know. But then again, I'm saying this from a position of privilege. I went to a good school. So obviously, these things would probably not be magnified in a school like that. Having said that, this completely changed, say, going beyond 2010, 2011, when social media actually started becoming a lot more magnified. And that's when you started really sort of understanding how things worked inside a classroom, because now there was a camera in the classroom, which you did not have earlier. Now it is the norm, you know, to have somebody just secretly recording if a teacher is saying something or if someone's saying something, right? And then that thing just shows up completely on social media. So the picture that you had versus the picture that you have now is very different. This is the way I am seeing this now, that immediately if something happens, right, it's up on social media within hours. You don't have to wait to find a Times of India reporter or to find an Indian Express reporter. Tab agla din wo chapega. Then the night after that, it's up on television or something like that. You know, it's much, basically the news cycle has become faster. And along with that, the way people think about these things have also changed. So that's where this sort of idea came from. that now when you're an 18-year-old today, you have this influx of information coming in from all sides. So what do you believe? How are you sort of, you don't have that mental maturity yet, with all due respect to 18-year-olds. You don't have that mental maturity.
They don't have mental maturity. I've been through that age, so I can say that pretty confidently, and so have you.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
don't.
yeah. So,
I mean,
so they don't.
I know 30-year-olds who don't have the mental maturity, but that's maybe the topic for another day. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's where I come from when I sort of say this, that 18-year-olds today have this sort of absolute influx, where these are sort of distractions, where there's somebody sort of, influencing them, or there's somebody out there, or like in this case is what the way they're sort of suggesting that
Like one of your
these.
followers who just commented, Chick Sim, saying that there's an information overload. Now, whether she's talking about what you're saying or whether she's talking about something else, some
I think
insight.
she's just unhappy that I didn't, tell her how old I am. So that's why she said that.
Okay, we'll come to that later. Yeah. But I mean, talking about that, see, there is also what is happening is, I think, yes, you basically started off right at the base of the topic, right? That what exactly is, how did the social media thing start, and the videos are being taken and they are being uploaded on social media. But the general nature of the way people think, or the youth think, or human beings think, or youngsters think, that's what I want to ask you. Do you think that there were always people like this before? It's just that right
Yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just become more magnified now. I think it was there earlier as well. It's not just like a new thing. It's just it's you know what? Actually, I knew you were going to ask me this question. So the answer to the question was that there are a lot of old timers, a lot of boomers, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, who over the years, anecdotally, I have heard them say that तुम अभी क्या बोल रहे हो? ये तो मेरा टाइम में भी होता था. It's just more magnified now because of the internet, because of YouTube, because of social media. I guess
yeah,
that's the answer.
I think, yeah, that's putting it. And also, to give a more simpler sort of a specific context, if we talk about these issues, controversies which are happening on digital media, मम्मी आप टैब बंद कर दोगे? So these are what happens when you're recording from the house. Anyways, so yeah. I think there was this controversy which happened in 2015 or something, which was pretty big. That was that blue whale conspiracy or something, right? Where these
Yeah, that's a good example.
they were basically doing these challenges where I don't know. It basically led up to different challenges where you would self harm yourself, and then it would lead up to something where actually you are supposed to commit suicide. Now that was insane. That was truly insane, according to me, right?
Yeah.
That happened. Then I think there was another thing which happened about 3 years back, or 2.5 years back, which is to do with that boys' locker room controversy, which was unsurprisingly again sourced from Delhi. Delhi boys, 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds have a reputation. When I was in class 11, that whole MMS thing happened.
Yes.
Right. That's actually when it actually started. Okay. I mean, when it came
out in the mainstream.
Yeah, when it came out into the mainstream, in the sense, see, first it was these celebrities sort of videos. These celebrities, whatever affairs going on, and the videos coming out in the open, which they had shot in private, etc. And then, of course, it came out into this DPS case, and then it actually became that, oh my God, this is something which can actually happen to any of us, to all of us.
Yeah.
Then, of course, it took a few years. Facebook was still not there that time. Facebook came around 2 years later. That also.
So then it was probably the awkward generation or the high five generation, where people could start putting up pictures, because essentially you just had elementary pictures at that point, or at worst you could be in a Yahoo chat room.
Yeah.
At that point in space and time, where this sort of discourse did exist even then. But obviously it was not something that people really had access to. Not everybody had a phone with internet, to be able to sort of have these conversations or whatever. And right. Oishani actually asked a question a while ago where she said, is it really an 18-year-old problem? That's a good question. It's only because one of the people who've been caught in the case is 18 years old. That's why we decided to call this topic an 18-year-old thing. But it's only a metaphorical way of saying that what is it like to be an 18-year-old today? It could well mean what is it like to be an adolescent today in this country, not just somebody in your late teens, so it could mean anybody in their 20s also, because you're still going through that same set of complicated magnified issues in your life. It's just that it's a different age, and you're going through all these sort of feelings where you sort of want to speak out, and then there's this entire moral issue between right and wrong. That's why there's this entire debate now, basically, where people are like, oh, they should not do anything to this particular person, and so on and so forth. They're sort of sympathizing with the person who's been caught right now on Twitter, or so on and so forth. Where now again there just becomes this entire, like I said, morality issue. So it's not just an 18-year-old problem.
Morality issue in what sense?
Morality issues in the sense that right now people are like, we should not convict an 18-year-old. What we should do is we should try and rehabilitate the person. That's the sort of discourse that exists right now, immediately a couple of hours after the news is broken out.
And what do you think about that?
What do I think about that? If a person is by law 18 years old, then you can be convicted under law. So you are going to be tried in a case of law. I mean, you have to it's not a question of what I think. It's a question of how the law should play out, rather.
Well, everything doesn't really go according to the law, and the law is not always right. But I get your point.
Yeah. In this case, you should ideally go by the law, if you want to ask me for my opinion, right? If the person is 18 years old, you try the person in a court of law.
And what about the rehabilitation part, which you also mentioned?
I don't know. That completely depends on how the law works. I'd have to read up about that, honestly.
Okay,
I don't know.
Primarily by the law, I would also definitely say that, yes, we have to go by the law. There's no doubt about that. But whether or not they go by the law, whatever finally happens, the level of rehabilitation has to happen.
See, I can sit here like an activist and tell you that rehabilitation hona chahiye. No, but I'm just saying that you can say that rehabilitation ho jana chahiye, karna chahiye. You should counsel these people. You should speak to them. You should tell them that we should start taking social media laws more seriously in this country. We should take privacy laws more seriously. Those kind of conversations should eventually come out of this.
My thing is rehabilitation with respect to just this particular case, where these individuals have put out photos of women and are selling them off in a mock auction, and of course they have targeted a particular minority community. Rehabilitation in that sense also, that whole, because I mean, that could be a topic of a separate thing, right? How they became like this, how that person started thinking like this, etc., etc. So I mean rehabilitation in that sense, that where they're probably going wrong, because again, it's a long drawn process. It's not going to change in one day. This is something which their mentality is, or maybe when people start talking to them, they realize what went wrong, etc. Also to address a few comments and sections. Some comments which came in. Chicksim said that Orkut chat sites and pleasing people, the youth is very obsessed about that right now because of social media, which is there. You get validation from likes, you get validation from comments, you get validation from.
But that's just how social media is sort of designed.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It just works that way, so that you constantly are in this.
This was a desperate attempt of one person who obviously is stirring communal tensions, doing something.
We have 5 more minutes. We have 5 more minutes.
We have 5 more minutes. Okay, cool. Just tell me when we have 30 seconds left, and then we'll wrap up. But and also there's someone else who made a very good you were speaking about the title thing. So there's somebody else who's commented that the title of the video should be what it means to be an asshole.
Correct. Okay. That probably makes a lot more sense. I didn't see that. Yeah, I just looked at that right now. Yeah, that actually makes a lot more sense. But having said that, if the title of this video had to be what it means to be an asshole today, which is completely correct, and I endorse that statement, that brings me to my next question to Kabir, is that how far do you think these three people who have been convicted today or who have been caught today to be tried, how far do you think they have been influenced to do these things versus doing it on their own? I think that's more the crux of, where we want to take this discussion.
See, looking at their age and sort of guessing at it, if you're 18 or 21, I think it's more of the surroundings and the sort of family and friend circle and atmosphere which you've been brought up with, that your mentality of thinking has become like that, A, which leads to B, you showing it on social media. And I think the pandemic, they say the pandemic has brought out the best in people, but we've also seen that, let's talk about the fact how the pandemic is also leading to bring out the worst in people, the mental health issues, etc. So this is also something, not that this issue would not have happened if the pandemic was not there. Locker room and blue whale controversy happened way before that. So yeah, I mean, I think the topics and all, I mean, the title headings, what it means to be an asshole, what it means to be 18, what it means to be 21. There are, of course, you can think of 20 other topics for this. But I remember when we were discussing this today, you also brought up another very valid point. You were talking about, and obviously we won't have enough time to debate on this because we're running out of time. You were talking about left wing and right wing, and how during the Disha Ravi case, Disha Ravi was what, 21?
Yeah. So then during the Disha Ravi case, they said that how can somebody who was raised by a single parent have any direction in life, give her direction in life? But then in this case, they're saying that we should rehabilitate this 18-year-old because she's lost both her parents. So there's this.
I didn't. I mean, I know
that. I think she lost. I mean, I don't want to. Let's not look it up. Just look it up, okay? I don't want to go into the personal.
But I feel that, I mean, that is also an important point. If someone at the age of 18 has lost both their parents, that is a very big deal, and that definitely needs to be looked at. Which is why I again come back to the point of rehabilitation. I'm not saying don't let the law take its course, of course, but rehabilitation is very important because this is not just a one-person syndrome. This is one person who went to social media and it became a controversy. There are 1,000 other people who say similar things, but their tweets don't go mainstream because for whatever reason they don't have enough followers, etc. Whatever stuff like that.
Yeah. So again, it comes to the status quo. It depends who's bringing up the discourse, who's having these conversations. It comes to things like that. See, what seems is what it basically, to sum up. Okay, we have about 15-20 seconds left. To basically sum up, it seems like, number one, these are very coordinated things. Whenever these things happen on social media, they seem to be extremely coordinated. If it's just, I'm not just saying if it's against, I'm not saying specifically this case where minority women were targeted, but if it's any other case of people being targeted on social media, it seems to be very systematically coordinated, first of all. And the second thing is that these are not isolated incidents. It happens on a daily basis, on an absolute daily basis. This time, some very, very important people who write about issues, I'm talking about these minority women with verified accounts who are well-respected journalists. These are people who've been bringing forward the discourse of good journalism over the last 5 to 10 years. They've worked hard, they've built up their bylines, and they're writing for international organizations. And then they see themselves in an app like this. They are going to raise a stink, boss. They're not going to take it lying down. You can see it on Twitter yourself. So it's because of that today this is going somewhere. That's why today it is in the news. But this may not be the case for the other coordinated attacks that happens, is what I'm saying. We need to start thinking of that and start recognizing that these are coordinated attacks.
True. Due to paucity of time, we're going to end it at that because Aman just WhatsApped me. He has to have an early dinner also today. So I'm going to end this Insta Live. And for the ones who've been watching this, oh my God, 8 people, it's gone viral. For the ones who are watching this, if you we'll be doing these sort of video discussions a bit regularly from now on because the pandemic has closed the parks and the gyms and the clubs. So I'll be spending more time in the house. To be frank, that's the real reason. So if you want to, want us great, brilliant minds to talk about certain other issues, you can message Aman or message me or comment on this video and let us know. And then according to whatever we decide, we're going to take that forward. So that is all for today. I'm ending the live session right now. Take care. Thank you very much and bye-bye.
See you. Thank you, Kabir. Always a pleasure.